You're listening to the Station 71 podcast with your host, Mario.
Beth.
And Brian.
I'm gonna start this week a little bit differently because we just got done recording almost 45 minutes worth of an episode to do our Tomorrowland in-depth tour like we planned this week, and then my computer crashed. So, since we're a little bit short on time, we're gonna do a very quick news session and a couple superlatives just to kind of have something to put up this week. Since my computer is still trying to figure out what the heck just happened, I'm going to turn it over to Brian with the news.
Yeah, okay, so our first news story this week is that there are rumors that the Talking Mickey meet and greet is going to have a big change, and that Mickey is not going to talk anymore to guests during the interactions. So they are saying that this is because the other Mickeys that you can meet in the other parks or in different areas around Disney World does not talk. So it would confuse guests that the Town Square Mickey talks. I'm not sure how much I buy into this. It seems like a really strange reason to make this change, but that is what the rumors are saying right now.
It's very interesting, to say the least. Like, Talking Mickey potentially going away is weird at this time, because, like I said this earlier in our first iteration of this show, we had a lot of things come out with the RFID technology when Talking Mickey was first put into place. Like, Small World had the thing at the end where it says goodbye to you, and Haunted Mansion has the ghost that sometimes say things like where you're from, and slowly Disney's kind of pulling back from that. I can't remember a time recently where the Small World screen's been up and Talking Mickey's potentially going away, but at the same time we're also hearing about all this stuff that's going to happen in the Star Wars Hotel with your RFID and the Magic Band technology. So it's interesting to see that this is something that they're even talking about, or that's even rumored. But I'd be interested to see where we go from here in terms of Mickey.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. They were also testing other characters, actually out in the parks. Not at Walt Disney World, but at a different Disney park. I can't remember off the top of my head which one. But they had, Minnie and Donald and Mickey, and they were just, outside meeting with guests, and they were talking. So I don't really understand why they would be throwing that much money into trying to get that kind of program off the ground and then be considering closing this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting point. I didn't even hear that.
Alright, so moving on to our second news story is Disney files patents for Lightsaber Augmented-Reality Technology, and what this might mean for the future and how they're going to implement this in the parks.
Also very exciting because that just means we're probably a little bit closer to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about this before, but Galaxy's Edge kind of sunk in the back of my mind a little bit. So, it's coming up in 2 years. Well, a year now. It's coming up next year. But we've got Toy Story Land coming up this year. So them putting patents in for stuff either means that it's going to be, new innovative technology that's going to be coming out with the launch. But at the same time, it's more stuff to get excited about, which is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love when Disney tries to innovate with things, and we hear about leaked patents and stuff like that because it's always fun to speculate, what are they doing back there?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what comes of this, especially, the article basically says you'll be able to carry a virtual lightsaber and use it to fight and interact with your environment. So how that would translate into the parks, I think would be really interesting. Obviously with Star Wars or Galaxy's Edge. But if it's successful, who's to say that they don't come up with other ideas similar, So
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see this come out.
And the other thing that's we should probably note before we start super speculating is that while this is, Disney has filed a patent for this, they haven't said what it is. The article also mentions that it could be mobile games, it could be console games, it could be park stuff. We don't know yet. But now is the time to do that armchair Imagineering that we all love so much.
All right, and for our third and cutest news story of the week, there was a new hippo that was born at Disney's Animal Kingdom this past weekend. So, if you get a chance, look up the picture. We'll have to link it in the show notes because it is ridiculously cute.
Yay, more baby animals. This has been a good year for Animal Kingdom births.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they name it. It says that the gender hasn't been determined yet.
That's interesting. Like, I don't know anything about hippos. Is that like they can't actually determine it, or I'm wondering, does the mom like not really like let the keepers get close to it when it's a baby?
Probably too small to be determined. Like, there's some animals I know. For example, I have a bearded dragon, and for the first year that we had him, we couldn't determine the gender because it was just very hard to tell. So I'd assume it's probably the same thing. Probably also a little bit of the mom's extraterritorial.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both. I think, obviously, like Mario was saying, reptiles are really hard to tell. But I think even, mammals and other species can be difficult to tell when they're that young because, she was literally born less than a week ago. So, guess we'll find out.
Cool.
So that brings us to our news topic of the week. And since we already sort of half discussed Tomorrowland, but we have no evidence of that, we're going to do a quickfire superlatives show this week. This is going to be shorter than our typical shows because we're short on time, but we wanted to give everyone something to listen to, something to talk about. So let's dive into our superlatives list. I'm going to take this just down from the top. Some of these I feel like are probably going to be harder to answer because we're kind of at the bottom of our list now.
Mm-hmm.
But first up, we've got best bang for the buck restaurants. We kind of talked about rides or extra add-ons and stuff before, but this one's hard for me, I think, because I do dining plan, so I don't know. I never try to look at prices.
Yeah, I don't do table service very often, but I've eaten at most of the quick service in the parks. But I would say, I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, at Magic Kingdom I think that Pico's Bill is a really good value because of the toppings bar, and similarly Resto at Animal Kingdom, Restaurantosaurus. And
I would agree with that.
Restaurantosaurus actually has really good guacamole on their toppings bar, so, or at least it was really good last time.
I would say, kind of in the same vein, any of the buffets are good bang for your bucks because they're usually not ultra expensive. I know I have looked at the prices for them before, and you get a lot of food for a pretty decent price.
I'm gonna say, I would agree with that. The buffets, definitely, if you're the kind of person that, eats big meals in the park, you do get a lot with the buffet. But, and this might just because it was fresh in my mind just from going last weekend, but I think Satuli Canteen is one of the best, the amount of food and the kind of quality and preparation and presentation of the food that you get for a quick service restaurant is pretty high above a lot of the other stuff at Disney.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Are they still serving it on like real plates too?
Yeah, and it's cool.
Which is awesome for quick service.
Yeah, and like for anyone that hasn't been, the all the plates are like very artistic. Like they're not like regular circular dinner plates. They're all these strange, like very organic looking shapes. And I remember getting my food, and the first thing I thought is like, man, this must be a nightmare. They can't even stack these things in the bag. Like,
oh yeah,
how do they put them all together? But the food's good. You get, it's kind of cool for knowing that, for people that haven't ever been, you get to choose like your protein, what kind of base you want, like whether you want it on rice or like a salad type deal, and then the sauce that you get put on it. That's their main staple thing that they have there, and it's really cool. It's not very expensive. I'm wanting to say it was under $15 for any of them, and it's like you're getting a plated, I think, sit down quality meal from a quick service restaurant.
When I went to Satuli Canteen, I didn't do the bowl. I guess is whatever, like you were saying, where you get to choose your protein and your base. I did the steamed curry bao buns. Which I'm looking at the menu now, is $10.99, which you get like a decent amount of food. It's like 2 pretty good sized buns, and then it comes with a vegetable slaw and vegetable chips, and the vegetable slaw has like little kind of boba pearls on top of it, so it's like really helps with the the theming and the atmosphere of the restaurant, because it's these buns that look kind of weird and like not of this world, and then you have like the slaw with the pearls on top that kind of is just like it's really good for the theming of the restaurant.
Yeah, and that is one thing I like about it. Like they take food that isn't necessarily exotic or out there, but the way they present it and plate it makes it look a lot more interesting than it is. Because like I know the other one they have is the same type deal, but it's a cheeseburger, so it's basically just a cheeseburger. You're just replacing the bun with this, pod thing that gets baked around it. So it's approachable, but it's also interesting.
So real quick, I want to change the topic, because this actually totally just dawned on me, and I did a little bit of digging, because I've been thinking about this one for a while. I'm kind of surprised that I'm going to say this, but I would say that Hoop-Dee-Doo Review is actually a good bang for your buck in terms of restaurants. The prices aren't super bad if you think about everything you get, because it's a dinner show. For the best seatings, like the Category 1 seatings, it's $72 a person. And that's your meal, the show, and I want to say you get all the like drinks and stuff included. Now, obviously that's not going to be for everyone, but for something on that scale, that is pretty expensive, but for all the stuff you get, that's a lot.
Well, according to the menu that I'm looking at, it includes unlimited soft drinks, coffee, tea, milk, beer, wine, and sangria.
Right.
So you could easily drink your price in beer, wine, and sangria, because a glass of wine or sangria is $9 or $10 probably by itself, plus the food, plus the show. So that sounds like it's a pretty good deal.
I mean, that's one I've never done, so I didn't want to say that as my my pick, but I would say that that's a pretty good bang for your buck, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. That's one I definitely plan on doing soon, so we'll see how I feel then.
Yeah, I've never done it either, but I would like to.
So we ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Next one was Best Character Dining.
I have never done character dining. It's just really sad.
I feel like this is a Kirsten question, because she hates characters.
Well, I kind of did character dining with Club Villain, but I don't think it's really the same. It was a really awesome experience, but it's not what you would really consider character dining.
Right. I don't think I ever had, this is going to sound awful, but I don't think I've ever had a character dining experience that I've really, like, loved. Because the food is, like, usually average. It's, like, I don't know. The experience is kind of a little bit rushed because the characters are at your table for, like, 10 seconds. That said, I think the one I've done the most is Crystal Palace. And that's super weird because I don't like breakfast, but I always end up for breakfast at Crystal Palace.
Have you done any, Brian?
I'm so unqualified to talk on this. The last one I did was probably 15 years ago, so I'm just going to sidestep this one completely.
See, I've done Crystal Palace. I've done the one in Norway that I'm not even going to try to pronounce.
Acurshius?
That's it. Yeah.
I think.
Whatever. I really didn't like that one, so I think out of the two, I'm going to say Crystal Palace.
No, did you not like...
Wait. Hold on. I'm going to pull a curveball on this one and say, be our guest. Because the beast does meet if you go for dinner time. And that's the only place that you can meet the costumed beast. So I would consider that character dining.
Yeah.
But anyway, what were you going to ask about?
I was going to ask, did you not like the Acurshius one because of it being princesses, or was it the food, or like what did you not like about it?
There's a couple things that I remember not liking. It's not the weird thing is like my memory on it is super hazy, and I would like to probably do it again just to confirm or deny my feelings on it in the future, but I remember the food was average, which may have just been like I didn't get the right thing or whatever. Like it could have been a couple different things. And the princesses weren't that good. I feel like the thing that sucks about like face character meets is that when you have a face character meet, we're gonna break the magic for a second, but if their friend is not very good, it ruins the whole thing. For example, one time Rapunzel asked my cousin about the owls in New Jersey, and we were like, what are you talking about? Only to realize that she was talking about Rowan College because their mascot is an owl. And we were like, well, that's something Rapunzel probably wouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's like, we kind of overanalyzed it a lot, and that character interaction kind of sticks out in my mind for that reason. But
that's not
the
canon.
one thing... Right. The one thing I do remember, like, absolutely remember about this meet and greet, and it, like, probably because it scarred me a little bit, was that when you go in, there's one princess that you meet, and I don't know if they rotate this out, but we met Belle, and I remember it was Belle in, like, her ball gown dress, so she had this big yellow dress on, but the one thing that really, like, I remember specifically about this was that she was very twitchy. Like... You know how sometimes like they'll do the movements and they'll be very flowy, and like her movement was very rigid, and like she didn't really like pay attention to us as we were coming up to meet her. It was kind of like, and this is a very weird thing to compare it to, but you know the animatronic in Midway Mania of Mr. Potato Head, how he's like always moving his arms.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like that, but with a real person. So it was a very strange experience. So I don't know. There's a lot of things about that. Like that one time I was there that have made me kind of just like, I don't know if I want to go back.
Yeah, I can see why that would kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth.
And I do. The weird thing is I do want to go back eventually, but it's just like every time I plan a trip, I'm like, why would I go back if I had a bad experience and then I end up eating the same places I've eaten before? So after that, we've got Best Queue.
Well, go listen to our episode.
Go listen to our episodes where Beth talks about Pandora.
Oh my god, that is the best queue. Flight of Passage, I think. But
What about you, Brian?
I'm gonna let you go first because I have 3 attractions that it depends on what day of the week you ask me. I could pick 3 and rotate them in and out of my number 1. So I don't want to take one of yours with that. So I'll let you go first.
I've got a couple too, so I'm afraid that I might take some of them. But Peter Pan is my first one. That's like when I looked at this question, that was the one I thought of immediately because I'm sure everyone's heard me talk about my love for the Peter Pan queue. But I also have to say Haunted Mansion and Expedition Everest.
Okay.
Those are my backups on that. And the reason being is like the second you step into Everest, it's like instantly you're transitioned into the attraction. It's where you're instantly immersed in it.
Yeah.
Haunted Mansion is kind of the same way. Like I know we've talked about that, especially in the tour video, but like I don't know. Peter Pan is just, I love the interactive queue and I love the way that it was set up.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. I will give it that. With mine, I'm definitely gonna say Haunted Mansion's in there. We've talked about this before. It's just fantastic. Same thing, yeah. With Expedition Everest, the whole just Asian area of Animal Kingdom is so well tied to it with the theming that you're in the queue essentially, like since you walk into that land of Animal Kingdom, like all of the expedition bags that they have hanging up everywhere. It's just it's above and beyond good theming in my opinion. And yeah, the queue is so cool. The queue does a great job telling a story, and like aside from it usually being very hot in Florida when you go on it, like you feel like you're in Nepal. So it's very, very cool. They need to find a way to just like crank the AC like on max the whole time you're in there, so it's actually really cold. That would be the only thing they could do, I think, to improve the theming. But that, and then I definitely have to give a shout out to Tower of Terror.
Oh, that's a good one.
It does so good of a job with like I would say telling a quiet story, if that makes sense. Like there's not really a through the queue much of a actual hard storyline until you get to the actual the pre-show scene, but it does such a good job with the theming in the area around it and just using the scenery to build up the creepy, unsettling mood that it definitely earns a spot in my top 3.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So this next one, I kind of want to lump both of these next two together. Let's do best table service and worst table service.
I have not eaten a whole lot of table service, so I'm very unqualified.
Go ahead, Brian. I got to think about mine a little bit.
Worst is easy for me. It's got to be Tony's.
Yep.
I know we talked about this before in another episode, so I won't dwell on it too long, but it's bad.
Now, is it the food, the theming, both?
A little bit of both, I would say. The food is not good. I don't think there's any way around that. Like, for
it's
what
like
you're
mall food court Italian.
Yeah, it's not.
It's like Olive Garden Italian, but if you were to tone it down like 3 steps.
Yeah, I would.
I was about
I know
to
a lot
say,
of people.
don't talk crap about Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I love Olive Garden, but the way that I view Tony's is, not to cut you off, Brian, but the way that I view Tony's is it's like that Italian that's not really Italian, but everyone's like, oh, that's Italian food. And like if you compare Olive Garden to like a regular Italian restaurant, I think it's like that version of Olive Garden.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. But then it's like turn it down like 3 steps because it's still really below that.
Yeah. And yeah, the theming of it, if you want to call it that, there's really not much of it. I mean, they I guess they just try to kind of tie it into the like small town square, kind of scenery around it, but I don't know. I don't feel like they do a very good job at it. It's just kind of... It has to be the most easily replaced restaurant at Disney. You could stick anything in there, and I think that speaks volumes as to why most people have a very negative opinion about it. It's bad food. It's not memorable in any way other than how bad the food is. And you could just plop any other kind of restaurant in there and it would work.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's one that if they ever replaced it, I would not miss it.
I don't think anybody would care.
Yeah. So there's 2 on here that I wanna do, and I think that should probably put us at enough time to put an episode out this week.
Wait, are we gonna do
you
best?
guys have a best?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Duh. Brian was talking, so I'll let him finish first.
Jeez, I have to think.
Unless you don't have one.
No, I mean, I have a couple that, that I really like. I don't eat at sit-down places very often, and I rarely do it in the parks. So if you wanted to keep this to best table service in the parks, that would be difficult, because usually if I'm going to sit down, I resort hop, or generally I just don't do it. Like, I do Disney fairly fast-paced when I go, and I just don't want to take the time to sit down and table service most of the time. But if it was open to anything, I would probably say Ohana at the Polynesian.
That's hard to beat, yeah. I would say I agree with you wholeheartedly on Tony's. I don't think I can think of anything that even comes close to what I feel about that restaurant. But my best, I have 2. I am gonna stay in park, and I know that this is coming to no surprises to anyone if you listen to our draft. I would say Be Our Guest and Via Napoli.
I have a reservation for Via Napoli.
I'm so excited for you.
I'm really excited. I'm gonna take a vegetarian day, because vegan cheese is not where it's at.
And I think this is one that you really have to just experience to like I know I've talked about this a lot, and I won't take up more time than needs to be said about it, but Via Napoli is that one that they advertise on the Magic Express when you fly in, and every time I see it I'm like, man, I really just want to go there now. Like, that's one of those things that I think about every time I think about Disney, and it's a really weird thing to think about, but it's just such good pizza. Like, I think about it constantly. That's how good it is.
It is very, very good pizza.
I'm excited.
And especially because, pizza is so... pizza's so easy to make that, I feel like there should be more pizza places on Disney, but the ones that they do have are just awful.
Yeah.
When you have a good one, it's hard to top.
Man, Kirsten's going to be real upset that we brought up Via Napoli and she didn't get to talk about the scenery.
Yeah.
Or the attractive waiters.
That's what I meant.
It was lumped into the scenery. So, the 2 that I want to do, we'll start with Best Extinct Attraction. See, this is a hard one because, it's very... A lot of the attractions that are extinct that are, well-loved and well-remembered, it's very hard for us to kind of talk about because we didn't really live through most of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely, a good few that I would have loved to, at least experience.
Yeah. Horizons would be on the top of that list for me. I've seen ride-through videos of it, and it just looks incredible. And I really hate that, I never got to go on it. But, yeah, it's hard to think because, I don't know, I guess from the time that I've been going, when you look at a lot of the stuff that closed down, you kind of feel like there was a pretty valid reason for it, so...
Stitch's Great Escape, cough it off.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. Yeah, if I had to pick one that I've actually been on, I don't know. It's hard. Like,
If we had to go one that I've actually been on, I would say Old Soren. Like
okay,
that's just the one that pops up.
Yeah, that's a real good point. It's kind of hard. Like, yeah, I don't immediately go to think of that, but it's almost enough for it to be categorized as a different ride from the original one to the one now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely is.
I mean, that's the other weird thing is like a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the time that we've all been going to Disney is like major refurbishments,
Right.
to the point that they feel like new rides. But if we were to say things that we didn't live through, like ride through videos, just they don't really do it for me. So I've seen ride through videos of like Horizons, of the old Journey into Imagination and stuff like that. And while they look great, and I would have loved to experience them, I can't feel the same connection because I wasn't there.
Right.
Now, that said, one that I, strangely enough, would love to have experienced is probably Alien Encounter. I know that we did kind of see it, like, similarly in Stitch, but, like...
Ooh, I don't... I did.
No, I did it as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do it, so I don't... It's the same system, I guess, is what I'm hitting at there. But I feel like that's such a different thing from anything that Disney's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really like to kind of experience that now with, like, my love for Disney parks.
I will say,
Yeah.
just if anyone listening hasn't picked up on this by now, I really love like digging into history and stuff around Disney. If you're into it, to look into Alien Encounter and kind of how it came to be and who was involved with the making of it and everything. It's a very, very interesting story.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I did read up on that one for a little bit, and that's really, really neat. What about you, Beth? What do you think?
So, are we talking like strictly attractions, or could we do shows too?
You can do shows. Sure, I don't see
'Cause
why not.
I had a few that popped into my head. The first one, I don't know if I would say that this is the best extinct attraction that I've experienced, but it's the one that popped into my head first. And one that I really enjoyed was the Studio Backlot Tour.
Oh, yes.
And I really missed that. That was one of the reasons that I went to Hollywood Studios regularly, whereas I haven't been in like a year and a half now. But other than that, I also really missed the Osborne Lights.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, that was a good one. So, the last one I want to do, just because it's kind of like ties it up, most underrated attraction. I feel like
Living with
this
the
is
Land.
Yep, I was going to say it, yep. That one, without a doubt.
I would also say, and I've said this like twice today already, but People Mover.
That's a good one too.
People Mover is 100% underrated, even though like that's the ride that is like it gets love when there's not much else to do in Tomorrowland. But there's never a wait for that, and it's such a good attraction that even if it had a 30-minute wait, I would probably still ride it.
Yeah. That's a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you could think of that's like criminally underrated?
I don't know. Just, I mean, I think I've said stuff about this before, but just on Living with the Land, like it's funny in a way, not really funny. Like how easy this is to overlook, and it's not even something that it's like a small attraction. Like there's obviously a good bit of money that went into the building of this, of the boats and the like the greenhouse system and everything and all the other technology that they're using to grow the plants in here. And it's like, especially now with Circle of Life closing, I feel like so many people are just going to run in the land pavilion, like cut to the left, get on Soarin', and then walk out. And you could easily go through there and like honestly not realized that Living with the Land was in there, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, it's behind an elevator, or an escalator, essentially. And
Did we talk about that closing?
I think we
did.
I think we mentioned it as a news topic, did we not?
I don't think we did, because that was last week.
I think maybe we just talked about it, like, privately.
I think so.
yeah, oh, sorry to drop that bomb on y'all. Yeah, bad news to fans of Circle of Life.
Are there any?
Yeah,
But that brings us to an interesting point that we could talk about for a little bit. With that leaving, it's very weird that the Land Pavilion is, like, still a thing. Like, we haven't heard anything about anything going in its place, and, you know, while that is a small chunk of the pavilion, if you think about all the stuff that's in there, like, you've got 2 restaurants, and you had 3 technical attractions. Now we're down to 2 attractions and 2 restaurants.
Yep.
And one of those restaurants is just a mall food court.
Don't hate on Sunshine Seasons.
All that I can hope, and I wasn't a big fan of Circle of Life like most people were, but I can say that it did fit well with the theming of what the Land Pavilion was. And Living with the Land obviously fits perfectly with it. You know, Soarin' doesn't really, in my opinion, and I would hope that whatever they do replace Circle of Life with, it continues more along the theme of what Living with the Land does. Hopefully it's a big improvement on Circle of Life, though, because it was just not good.
Yeah, I never saw Circle of Life, but when we were discussing it, I think the general consensus was watch it on YouTube and you get the same experience.
I mean, it really is. You sit in a theater. It's nothing special about the theater you're watching it in.
Yeah.
And
But
I just don't like being shamed by some of my beloved childhood cartoon characters into
do they legit shame you?
They so do.
It really is.
Beth, I have some homework for you. Once we finish this episode, go watch a video of it on YouTube.
Like, nobody,
Well,
I don't think anybody feels good after watching the Circle of Life. They're just like, man, I'm a horrible, horrible person.
And it's ultra dated. Like, it was time.
Yeah, I definitely need to take the time to watch it, but I'm a bit of a tree hugger, so I don't know. I mean, obviously I probably won't get warm and fuzzies watching it, but
Well, that's why I was so surprised.
I probably would like it more than most.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like, yeah, it does have that message of, like, environmentally friendly, but, like, it's been so long since I've seen this, so Brian, you might have to, like, correct me on some stuff here. But I vaguely remember that, like, the whole plot of it was, like, Timon and Pumbaa are, like, building a casino or something. Like, something weird is happening.
They're building like a vacation. So they're like building a vacation destination, and they're having to dam off a river that just like supplies the entirety of the savannah, and so they don't really care. And somehow Simba comes along, and starts, talking sense to them. Yeah, it's I don't know it. One, it doesn't seem like the characters that they make Timon and Pumbaa and even Simba be in this don't relate to how they are like in The Lion King at all. And I don't know, it's just weird. Simba makes you feel real bad for like drinking out of a plastic water bottle, so
it makes you like, when you leave, it makes you feel bad about a lot of your choices that you've made.
Right, like it's like the opposite of Animal Kingdom. I feel like you go to Animal Kingdom and they do show like, okay, Animal Kingdom is what you can do when you practice, good like conservation stuff. Mm-hmm. Circle of Life is like the post-apocalyptic future of not taking care of the environment.
Oh God.
So true.
Like WALL-E.
Essentially.
No, but see, I felt good watching WALL-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they tried to fix it at the end, right? Spoiler alert.
I don't know. That's one I just don't. I don't know. I just don't care.
About
leaving.
Wally? Oh.
No, not Wally.
I was like, excuse me?
No. Although it did take me a couple tries to watch Wally. I won't
What?
talk about that though.
Oh my
I fell
gosh.
asleep on Wally the first like two
Oh
times
my
I watched
goodness.
it.
What?
But it was always like the same part. It was always like the first 15 minutes into the movie. And then like it started to pick up and I felt better and I actually watched it.
Man, I love that movie.
We still have to film like a Disney Guilty Pleasures or Disney Confessions video or episode. That would be fun. Talk about all the things that we love that everyone's going to hate us for.
Or the things that we hate that everyone loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have more of those than the opposite.
I can talk about how I didn't mind Stitch's Great Escape.
There you go.
Ah, blasphemy.
Anyway, before we spoil that whole episode. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us an iTunes review as well so we can read it on the show. If you want to interact with us, be sure to like us on Facebook. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Station71pod. We're on Twitter at Station71pod, Instagram at Station71podcast, and you can send us your emails or listener questions to station71podcast@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.